So, you're the new addition to the Brotherhood.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Stripe Hayes, and today we are replaying the classic real-time strategy Command & Conquer Tiberian Dawn. And asking the question, was it any good, and is it still good today? A massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. More on that at the end. For now, let's get Battle Control online and return to the classic fight of GDI versus the Brotherhood of Nod. Now, I played this game as a kid on PlayStation 1, and anyone who's played a real-time strategy game knows how hard using a controller can be. So when I got my first PC, I bought this game and spent night after night slugging it out against the AI. God knows I loved this game as a kid, but does it hold up today? Let's find out. Tiberian Dawn is the first installment in the Command & Conquer Tiberian series made by Westwood Studios. It was one of the earliest real-time strategy games to really hit mainstream appeal thanks to a decent variety of troops, online multiplayer, and one of the best gaming soundtracks ever composed. So let's replay this absolute classic. Tiberian Dawn follows the story of the Global Defense Initiative, or GDI, attempting to police the world, while the quasi-religious terrorist organization the Brotherhood of Nod attempts to build a nuclear bomb under the command of the charismatic leader, Kane. The majority of conflicts in the game revolve around this stuff, Tiberium, green crystals that have started growing on Earth and are packed full of energy. The harvesting of Tiberium has become one of the world's leading industries, and unfortunately for the GDI, the Brotherhood of Nod own just over half of it. The main game is split into two campaigns, the GDI campaign and the Nod campaign, and you can play them in any order, but of course all the cool kids pick the Nod campaign first because come on, the symbol is a badass looking scorpion tail. Unfortunately for all the cool kids, nowhere does it tell you the Nod campaign is substantially harder than the GDI campaign. Now, because this was made in the 90s and video games were a crazy lawless wasteland back then, they were trying everything they could think of, and Command & Conquer happened to fall within the full motion video cutscene era. So let's just enjoy this absolute nostalgia bomb together.
The Grain Trade Center in Vienna was the 17th urban bombing in 4 weeks, blamed on Nod terrorists.
The Security Commission remains in closed session tonight following Nod terrorist actions in Slovenia.
At least your mother tipped well.
Harsh, unforgiving wilderness.
New Tiberium harvesting methods instituted by the Brotherhood of Nod increase profitability by 49%.
Not gonna lie, part of me really wants full motion video to come back into games. It's a cheesy, guilty pleasure. And as we all know, the Command & Conquer franchise will continue to use full motion video and cast absolute Hollywood stars such as George Takei, Michael Ironside, Josh Holloway, Jonathan Pryce, and, as we can never forget, Tim Curry. This was cheesy war, the plot was dumb and they knew it, and they had fun with it. Perhaps one of the most interesting stories to come from the Command & Conquer acting side is one of the Brotherhood of Nod's enigmatic leader, the legendary Kane himself. Kane is played by Joseph Kukin, one of the directors of the game. Joe was hired on as a director of voice talent for Command & Conquer, but decided to just play Kane himself, and it was one of the greatest casting choices of all time. The man is Kane. Kane lives. Now, the original Command & Conquer came out in 1995, but in this video I'm playing the remastered edition available on Steam now because it's basically exactly the same, but there's an optional 4K graphics option. But even with this option, I prefer the old pixel sprites. There's just something about tiny blobs of pixels screaming and dying for the glory of Kane that makes me happy. Now, the moment-to-moment gameplay is relatively simple. You click on a troop and order it to move or attack. You can click and drag to collect a group, standard RTS stuff so far, but you'll notice when you do collect a group, there's no complete troop selection box. You can't see what you've got selected at a glance. While Tiberian Dawn did push the genre forward, it didn't finalise real-time strategy design, and there's a lot of smaller touches missing that games like StarCraft, Warcraft 3 and Supreme Commander would go on to add later. Combat in the game is basically rock, paper, scissors. All your units have strengths and weaknesses. The standard infantry is great at killing other infantry, but rubbish against base defences. Also, they can get squished by tanks, and tanks are great against buildings but get wrecked by rocket troops, so every encounter is a game of find the right balance and variety of troops to throw at the enemy. And you best throw them at the enemy all at one go, because a thin line of men marching toward the enemy one by one is just a waste of troops. In the early missions, you'll start with a selection of troops and just have to find the enemy, but eventually you'll get to the real core of the game, the base building. Each side starts with a construction yard, and then you'll build every other building, which in turn builds troops or vehicles. Your refinery then sends out a Tiberium harvester to bring back the precious green crystals, and everything costs Tiberium to build. Tiberium is the only resource you need to collect. The only other resource you need to manage is your power, and buildings take power to run and power plants make it. So build enough power plants, build a few refineries, then get pumping out the troops. Now, the GDI and the Brotherhood of Nod do look similar on the surface. The buildings even have exactly the same shape and footprint, but they play very differently. The GDI is much stronger in general, but much more general. Nod is weaker, but way more specialized. A GDI soldier or tank will be quite good against everything, while a Nod unit will fold like a cheap suit if you use it against the wrong thing, but completely steamroll when used for the right thing. For the early game gameplay, GDI is forgiving. Nod is not. Oh, and if you're unsure about Nod being the bad guys, their first mission is straight up murder a village because someone there disagrees with us. Yeah, Nod doesn't mess around. I remember that Call of Duty made headlines for their No Russian mission, but Nod just has you straight up killing people because they don't join you. These guys are terrorists, through and through. After every mission, you'll get this really stylized recap screen showing how many people you killed, or troops you lost, or buildings you destroyed. It's just fluff, but it really fleshes out the whole global conflict GDI versus Nod feel of the game. Plus, there's just something so endearing about graphics needlessly spinning around. Like, this is how games designers thought military UIs would look in the future. They couldn't have been more wrong. Once you're a few missions in, you actually get to choose which route you want to take and which mission you want to do next. Now, some missions are way harder than others, we'll talk about the difficulty later, but you won't actually know what you're getting into until you try it. And the only way to finish all the missions in the game is to go back and replay the game, because the AI completes the ones you don't choose. Now, one thing the original Tiberian Dawn got shockingly wrong is the difficulty curve. The entire GDI campaign is relatively okay. Each mission introduces you to a unit or a building type and explains its strengths, then puts you in a position to use those strengths. The GDI campaign is relatively balanced, except the last mission, which is all kinds of bullshit. But the Brotherhood of Nod campaign is insanely unbalanced. The first few missions are an absolute cakewalk, you basically can't lose, but by the 4th or 5th mission, the AI has decided, no, you don't get to play the game anymore. I guarantee you'll be reaching for a Google walkthrough, because Tiberian Dawn has some of the hardest missions of the entire Command & Conquer franchise. The scout or squad based missions, where you start with a limited number of troops and have to make your way through the map, normally storm a GDI base, grab an item and escape, are just ridiculously hard. You will be saving and quick loading a lot. If you use the wrong type of troop against the defense, you've basically lost. If you lose a tank to an anti-tank unit because you didn't send in your buggy, tough. You needed that tank later, restart now. Now, you can just select every troop you start with and brute force your way through, but good luck with the pathfinding. The Tiberian Dawn pathfinding was programmed to look like a drunk toddler. If you select a group and tell them to go somewhere, you'll get anything from laser precision double time marching to a random dude meandering to the other side of the map and aggroing every enemy along the way. The pathfinding for groups sucks. You need to get used to micromanaging because you're going to be doing it a lot, and units cannot move through each other. So if you have a line of units blocking, one dude will decide to take the long way around. You will lose him, and he will bring the enemy to you. Now, that's the issue faced on a limited squad mission. When you get to build a base and create troops and lead the charge in your own time, you'll face a whole new wave of problems. First off, you will get into a war of attrition against the AI, and you do not want to get into a war of attrition against the AI because the AI cheats. You need to gather Tiberium to make units, the AI does not. You need to micromanage your troops, the AI does not. You will throw your units against their base defenses, and even if you do destroy a building or two, they will rebuild in seconds. In some cases, the only way to win is to build up a massive horde, rush the enemy, knock out their construction yard and barracks and war factory, and hope they can't recover before you. And that leads us to one of the greatest tactics in gaming, the Engineer Rush. This unit, the Engineer, is an absolute hero. Send an Engineer into an enemy building and it's now your building. There's even a hidden tutorial in the game because the early missions require you to do this. So you'll quickly learn that loading up an armoured personnel carrier with engineers and rushing them into the enemy base is the greatest tactic in any map you can do that. Each mission in Tiberian Dawn is closer to a puzzle than a war. You've got limited resources, limited unit selection, and predefined enemy movements. It's trial and error puzzle game. And the elation of finally winning a mission doesn't always make up for the crushing frustration of restarting over and over and over again. In most missions, you'll have two avenues of attack. The frontal assault that's definitely possible, but also will get you killed a lot quicker, and the sneaky way. Most maps do have thin ridges you can creep a small contingent of soldiers along and then bombard the enemy defences from above. Now this sounds great, but there are a few issues. Once you attack the enemy base, they go into full-on aggression mode and send everything at whatever's attacking them. And in some missions where you're low on Tiberium or you can't train troops, this is a death sentence if you're not prepared. I had to restart this mission 7 or 8 times before I finally made it through with enough troops to both destroy the Conyard and the barracks and then survive the oncoming retaliation wave. And this highlights a massive problem with the pacing of the campaign gameplay. Missions usually start great. If it's a limited unit mission, you'll have a decent selection of troops, nicely organised and ready to rock. If it's a build a base mission, you'll have space to build and funds to start. And then the pacing just goes downhill. Once you lose your troops in a limited mission, it becomes agonisingly slow, and the gameplay becomes cheese the enemy by standing a few pixels out of range and slowly taking out guard towers, or inch forward and hope you can kill every troop one at a time. And if you do, unfortunately, get to the end of a limited troop mission and the enemy has more troops than you alive, it's kinda like losing Monopoly. You know when you know you've lost, but the game isn't over, you just have to keep playing it till you inevitably lose? That's what this feels like. If it's a base build mission, it becomes save your Tiberium and amass a massive force to steamroll the enemy in one go, or you won't stand a chance of breaking their defences. The end of most of the late game missions just slows to this inevitable crawl. For example, there's one Nod mission where you need to capture a GDI base, hijack an Orca attack vehicle, and then attack a village to the north to make it look like the GDI did it. Great plot, false flag attack, but there's an anti-air boat patrolling the river and the Orca can only hold 5 missiles and the base takes about 50 to take down, meaning multiple trips back and forth to reload, with no actual gameplay changing. This mission takes a really cool premise and tacks on 10 minutes of needless padding onto the end. It's tedious when it could be thrilling and shorter. Some of these Nod missions I pass by absolute chance. Look, here I was down to my last dude and a tank. I needed to cross a Tiberium field to get to the extraction point, and Tiberium kills infantry if they walk across it. But then I lost the tank, so I failed, right? Well, thankfully no, I managed to use my last engineer to capture a GDI refinery while its harvester was emptying Tiberium into it. And if you do this, you get the harvester as well as a unit, and it now counted as my unit so I could drive it to the endpoint and win. Not orthodox, but hey, if the AI can use exploits, so can I. Now, one plot aspect I love is while the missions aren't directly related, the objectives do often mirror each other. The Nod campaign takes place in Africa, while the GDI campaign is set over in Europe, but your objectives can reference the other. In an early Nod mission, you're tasked with building some surface-to-air missile sites to prevent the GDI using airstrikes against you. And they actually do send planes to bomb you in this mission, and you do need the SAM sites. While in the same GDI mission, not the same location but the same numbered level, you need to blow up some Nod SAM sites to call in an airstrike against the Nod base. It's a little nod to the characterization of both armies. It's also extremely cathartic when you switch campaigns and you get to control the units you've grown to hate. If you start off playing as GDI, you will develop a deep loathing for the Nod flame tanks shredding your infantry. And if you start as Nod, you'll foam at the mouth when a single GDI grenadier takes out your entire squad. And switching campaigns just to use those units feels so satisfying. Now, one major point we need to discuss is the music and the sound effects. Because if you've played this game, you know this music. This music gets you pumped up and ready to go. This music is absolutely incredible, and the score is done by Frank Kaplacki. This guy joined Westwood Studios when he was 17. He scored the Command & Conquer Tiberian storyline and the Red Alert games. He won awards for his work on Red Alert, and the songs are iconic. While you may recognise Hell March from Red Alert, it's his work on Tiberian Dawn. Tracks like Act on Instinct, mechanical man, no mercy, that really capture and enhance the raw battle vibe Command & Conquer was going for. Along with the world-class music, which I guarantee you will end up listening to on YouTube at some point, you'll be hearing the unforgettable sound effects. The troop dying scream is legendary. You're going to be hearing unit ready or construction complete in your dreams, and you're going to be quoting the commander. If I'm playing a more modern RTS game, I'm actually slightly saddened when I kill a unit and my unit doesn't say, "and that was left-handed," or "I got a present for you," when blowing up a building. Command & Conquer audio is top quality. The soundtrack holds up, the sound effects haven't aged a day. But the AI campaign, GDI versus Nod, good versus bad, ion cannon versus nuclear missile, is only a small part of the Command & Conquer experience. Because what you'll really be doing is challenging your mates. Now, more modern real-time strategy games usually go with 3 armies. StarCraft has Terran, Zerg, Protoss, Supreme Commander has Cybran, UEF, and the Aeon Illuminate. Hell, even Command & Conquer themselves added the Skrin into Command & Conquer 3. But in Tiberian Dawn, you've got GDI and Nod, and because of the limited units of each army compared to the more varied tactics of modern games, you've usually got one very strong opening move. And with Nod, that's Rocket Bike Rush their construction yard. With GDI, it's prevent being rocket bike rushed or lose your construction yard. And don't think you're good at this game because you can beat the AI on hard. Real players will demolish you because they've been playing for 15 years. I thought I was doing okay until I took on this one dude and he took me down in like 5 minutes. Hardcore long-time CNC players are brutally efficient at making you remember you're a complete noob. The remastered edition of the game available on Steam also features some really nice little extras like all the special missions previously exclusive to consoles, like using the commando to storm a beach. Or, my favourite thing, a remastered version of the original MS-DOS installation animation, which was, for the time, just next level awesome. To install a game, normally you're just watching a bar fill a screen. Imagine installing and watching this, like it's an actual program your computer is running and making it happen, like an actual Battlefield command. I loved this as a kid, and I still quite like it as an adult. So after replaying the game for a couple of hours, is it still good? Command & Conquer Tiberian Dawn is showing its age, and lots of modern real-time strategy design elements are noticeable by their absence. No troop-selected heads-up display, terrible pathfinding, crushingly difficult mission design in the second half of the game. The limited troop selection makes multiplayer games fun when you don't know what to do, and relatively linear once the winning build order is known. It's a strategy game made up of objectively better choices for any given situation and not that many situations, and eventually that does start to show. But it's simple in a charming way. The plot is ridiculous enough to be entertaining, but grounded enough that it still maintains a sense of real-world connection. A global military fighting a zealous cult is memorable, and the use of full-motion video was iconic for the time and still stands up as cheesy today. And Joe as Kane lends it this timeless pulp fiction quality. And alongside the cheesy acting and the fun plot, the soundtrack has aged like a fine wine. It does more than its share of work in building the overall feeling of the game. It's metal, it's industrial, it's techno. It's a masterpiece. Command & Conquer Tiberian Dawn was great for the time, and while not hitting the heights of what the RTS genre can be now, it laid the foundation and it still stands up surprisingly well today. It's not got a huge amount of replayability due to the limited unit selection and essentially being solved against the AI and multiplayer games only playing out in a few ways, but it's still a quality choice to kick back with for a few hours and lead some dudes into battle. Plus, even when you do turn the game off, you get that little battle control terminated soundbite. They knew Command & Conquer was a whole experience. It throws you in from the moment you launch the program and doesn't let you go. It doesn't stop the illusion until the very last second. This was a game that was committed to being immersive and memorable. So to end this replay, I'll award Command & Conquer Tiberian Dawn
You've got a present for you!
out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you've got a favourite childhood game you want me to replay and judge on modern standards, drop a comment down below. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channels going. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter and our Discord. And as always, peace through power, brothers. Peace through power.